Down the list of things I noted. I thought the argument around recessions was not super strong. Generally, if you're trying to counter recession, you want something that is timed around a recession, and so something counter-cyclical that would provide more stimulus specifically when that happens, and less when it's not, whereas UBI is more consistent. I think a much stronger argument connected to that is the economic growth one, which then you can use to motivate all the various things that you covered there. One big thing to point out, and I don't know if this was specified as far as the details of the design of the policy, but UBI may or may not include cash for children. And that causes radically different results. If it does include cash for children, generally it's more generous as far as supporting children than existing programs. If it does not, then it's far less. And so obviously all the points around that are very contingent on that design factor. I think arguing that replacing Medicaid could be very damaging is a strong point. Because healthcare costs tend to be quite variable, UBI as a replacement is a much stronger case when you're talking about something that has relatively consistent costs across the population. If it's something that's very different, then you may be supporting some people but leaving others behind because costs in that particular case will be a lot higher than what you're getting through the UBI. I think it's a strong argument to say that you do have more negotiating power in jobs, and I think particularly bringing in the strike fund, which often is around a similar level to what a UBI would be, and we have clear examples of how that does allow people to be able to negotiate for higher wages. And also as far as whether or not $1,000 a month is enough to live on long term, that is somewhat besides the issue because often with negotiation you are dealing with a relatively short time frame. Let's see what else. Yeah, there's some open questions around does UBI require deficit spending or not. There are proposals that are solely funded through taxation, and so obviously that affects the macroeconomics coming out of it. As far as looking at the labor market, one of the effects of more economic growth is that you would expect more jobs to be created, so you wouldn't actually have a static supply of jobs available, which makes it easier to argue that then you should be able to allow people to find better jobs. One thing that I was surprised didn't come up is the question of uptake around the means-tested program. Any program that's targeted, basically none of them have 100% uptake. You're not reaching the entire population that you're trying to serve. Often it's quite a bit lower. Even the best programs tend to be maybe like 80%. And so that's a strong argument as to why a means-tested program could be, or often is, less effective than one which is universal, which inherently would be getting everyone.
Thanks. I enjoyed this very much. I wish I could have videotaped this and sent this to my graduate students. This is stuff we talk about all day. So most of the issues have to do, I think, with targeting. In many ways, the UBI is like a version of the negative income tax, which Milton Friedman proposed many years ago, and is a simple way to address poverty potentially. The big difference is that the UBI doesn't phase out. And so I was surprised that no one made the argument that welfare, by phasing out, or tax system or other transfer programs that are means tested, that they might have disincentive effects on work, because if welfare or other programs incentivize people to work less in order to retain those benefits, then that also costs the government revenue and it increases the total cost of the program. The counter argument is that UBI is, as was said several times by this team on the left, is that it's not as well targeted as means-tested programs. And so that's really where the debate revolves. I think I certainly agree that the argument about UBI softening recessions is not very strong. And, you need the advantage of automatic stabilizers like food stamps or unemployment insurance is precisely that the spigot turns on precisely when you need more consumer spending in the economy. The outside option argument is theoretically appealing. I was a little bit dissatisfied with some imprecision in the way people were using the word wage. I don't know whether you mean hourly wages or earnings. there have been many experiments at the individual level in many different countries, and it's a long-standing fact in labor economics that what's called the marginal propensity to earn, which is a measure of if you give someone $1, how much do their earnings change? It's about negative 0.1, meaning every dollar you give somebody, we expect their earnings to decline by about 10 cents. So people have found that by looking at lottery winners in the US, where the lotteries pay off over time. They've also found that in Sweden. It's been documented in many different developing countries. Now, giving one person $1 is different than giving everybody in the economy $1. And so it's possible that if you give everyone in the economy $1, something different will happen because there's these, what economists would call general equilibrium effects, and it could affect what's happening with the firms and so on. And this Manitoba evidence was cited many times. I don't think that the Manitoba evidence is fully dispositive. It certainly is not answering the question that you two teams were debating about. So the question is not what happens if federal government finances a UBI in one province. The question was if the whole country eliminates means-tested transfers and replaces them with a UBI. And that's never been done before. Whereas these individual level experiments, we have lots and lots of evidence that people do decrease their earnings. So I think the jury is out on whether earnings would increase or decrease. And certainly the evidence from people winning the lottery is that their hours decrease. And there's good reason to think that happens. And when people's hours decrease, their hourly wages tend to decrease as well. I was entertained by the debate over Head Start because I've done research on them. So it's true that the Head Start impact study, which you were referring to, which involved a treatment control comparison with randomization, finds that impacts on test scores fade out by about first grade. But that's because, as I've shown some of my own research, that in that experiment, many of the people that were assigned to the control group just went to a different subsidized daycare center. So it was as if the treatment and the control group were both treated. And when we try to do a cost-benefit analysis of Head Start, we find that every dollar spent on Head Start yields at least $1.20 in social benefits. I would have encouraged you guys, though, to focus more directly on this issue of who's getting transfers, because as I understand the debate question, it's meant to be pitched as an almost revenue neutral question. What if we paid for a UBI by eliminating means-tested transfers? And if that's really the question, then I think it really boils down to a debate over how much you care about equity and whether you really think that the poorest households and child poverty are major issues that deserve to be singled out separately from a minimum basic standard of living.